Hi. Today we're going to talk about the idea of the refresh or the reboot or wiping the slate clean. This is a practice and really a skill, if you think about it, of a way to manage when you feel like you've gotten off track or you're off the wagon or you're not following through with actions the way you intended to, however you want to put it. When you get a little derailed, we need to practice the skill of being able to get back on track. The term reboot or refresh often, is a good one to think about this in terms of, when the computer's not working and everything seems to be just going sideways, you just hit the refresh button or you reboot the whole thing. The idea of wiping the slate clean and clearing off what's happened in the past so that you can start fresh. These are all ways to think about this. When you're often trying to make a change, especially if you've been in the all or nothing mindset or still working your way out of the all or nothing thinking, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that success means you no longer go off the rails. So I'll be successful when I just stick with this all the time and I don't go off the rails, or I don't have trouble, or I don't, make mistakes. And that's a little bit of a tricky place to be, because even someone who has mastered these skills, if we want to call it that, they still have times where they kind of go off course. And where the master is able to survive that better than someone who's more of a beginner in this process is that the master is able to get themselves back on track more quickly. So if you think of your going off track, let's say, in terms of the frequency of that, the intensity of that, and the duration of that. These are kind of the three metrics that we're trying to improve on when we practice being better at rebooting or refreshing. We want to be able to have the frequency of these kind of going off the rails situations to be less. So we're working at having that actually happen less often. It doesn't necessarily mean you won't feel the pull to do that less often, but to actually have yourself kind of go off course less often. That's one of our target progress measures. The next piece is the intensity. So if you think about going off the rails as being, eating a second helping of an otherwise healthy meal versus crushing an entire bag of potato chips or an entire box of cookies, the intensity of those two scenarios are maybe a little bit different. So you want to look at the off the rails happening less often, the frequency. You want to look at the intensity, and hopefully that, you can decrease the intensity or the impact of some of those experiences. And the third thing is the duration. And this one's a really big one, because oftentimes when we go, off course, it can take a long time to recover. It can take us longer than we'd like to be able to hit that reboot or refresh button. And before we know it, it's been weeks or even months that we've been sort of off the wagon. So if we can try to reduce the duration of these kind of slip-ups, that's a big deal too. So when something goes wrong, we'll often say, okay, I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll start again next week, or things will clear up next month and I'll start again then. All of that is the duration of how long this kind of off the path piece is going to impact you for. So if you can reduce that time, and a lot of that's a bit of a mental game. We pick these arbitrary new starting points really with no particular reason other than that's what we've decided. So can we shrink the duration of these little hiatuses from what we're working on? Can we ideally get to a point that within a moment we can decide, okay, I went sideways, I'm going to wipe the slate clean and start again, instead of waiting for the next meal or the next day or the next week or the next month. So something to think about this time of year, in the fall, it's almost like a good time that people feel to practice this refresh or reset or reboot. With fall schedules changing for a lot of people and summer being over, it's a great time to practice it and look at, can you challenge yourself to practice this skill? Clean the slate, start fresh, and work on reducing the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of the times that you're kind of in slip-up mode. Knowing that the goal is not to eliminate the slip-ups altogether. The goal is to be able to have them and recover from them more quickly. Have an awesome week.